Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today I wanted to get a little personal, a little special, right? A little big picture on Call of Dragons, where we specifically ask the question and talk about what would the game be like if everyone waited until they were Castle 25 and had all their buildings level 25 and had their tech maxed. And then everyone would essentially fight. That is what we're going to talk about today. And I am going to arguably sell you on this idea. And then we're also going to talk about how the game almost has just multiple hoops and hurdles that you have to jump through that inherently limit and force you to ultimately take longer to get these things done than it should take you, and they're doing it by design. It's a lot. I'm pretty excited. Before we start, let me get some agua. And I want to give a big shout out here to, I think it's Conga is the guy's name. I played with, I don't know if I'd say played with, but I knew this player in Infinity Kingdom, and we were having what I thought was just a really good conversation a couple days ago on the official COD Discord. And there was a few other people that had joined at the time, but the premise of it was kind of this back and forth idea of viewing the Kingdom Builders as a war game where the focus is a little bit more determined on fighting and having more of just kind of a fighter's mentality approach versus looking at how to get players to kind of this ideal state where they can really start enjoying the fighting more. And there was a couple kind of subtopics there, but that was kind of the two sides. Then it got me thinking that, man, this is something that is not only what I truly believe to be a fantastic topic, but it's something that is just not really talked about, to be honest. And so let me start off with the deep stuff, which is the idea here is that if you as a player, right, and I'm probably going to use this World of Warcraft reference that I often do in some of the videos where you look at WoW, and for anyone who has played WoW, or if you've never played it and you've been told by people, right, again, I've only ever played a little bit, nothing, very entry level. However, one of the consistent things I've always been told by multiple WoW players is you need to try and just grind, get your account to whatever it is, level 70, etc. Right? People can shun me if that's wrong, but in short, max level. Right? You want to get your account to max level or your character to max level, and then they say, well, then you can really start enjoying the game. And this approach really got me to start thinking, because I started developing this mindset some time ago, and the revelation I basically came to was that you have a number of outgoing resources versus incoming resources, right? So what's your income versus your outcome? And this is directly related to your PvP capabilities, as in how much PvP can you do overall, how many troops do you have at your disposal, how much training can you do, how quickly can you heal, how long can you heal for. And so what I realized is that when you're out there gathering, you're participating in events, if by chance maybe you're looting people, right, you are gathering and you have a certain amount of income resources that you have, right? You have the kind of one-offs, then you have more of the static ones or the consistent ones, which you typically get from gathering and doing events, etc., earning rewards. And so then you have to look at, well, what are your outgoing resources? Okay, well, you have 2 building queues that you're spending resources on. You have up to 2 research queues if you're a VIP 8 or higher. Then you have training, right? So you have up to five training, right? So we're kind of at 9 now if you're constantly training all of your 5 barracks. And then you have healing. If you have any healing cost, that's 10. And then potentially policies, right? Because obviously you have to spend on policies, but you also have to, I mean, you're basically getting it from Dragon Trail, but you obviously have to have the necessary amount of troops there as well. So kind of an outlier, right? So we'll just stick to 10, right? Let's just say 10 is our baseline. And so the idea here is now you have to look at, okay, well, what are my outgoing resource avenues that are the ones that directly factor to PvP? Well, these are your barracks trainings, which is 5, and then your healing, right, which is 6. So 6 out of these 10 avenues are directly related. Well, and let me be clear. You also have tech donations, right, that you're going to spend resources on, but not as much, obviously, as what you're going to do for the others. So again, just to keep it to 10. So, you have your barracks, and this is up to 5 because you may not, once you get to late game, right, or mid-late game, you may not train every single unit type. So I'll say up to 5, and we'll just use it for now as the example. And then 6, like we talked about, is your healing for your hospital. So the idea here is that if you want to be a more effective and efficient PvP contributor, well, the idea is that you want to reduce the amount of outgoing resources that you have from avenues, right? So in this case, if you already have all your buildings at max level, that's 2 major areas of resources that are going to building upgrades that are now gone, right? So all those outgoing resources that you once had now don't need to go to buildings. Now they'll probably go to research. And then once you max your tech out, then those 2 avenues, or 1 to 2 avenues, will then be done, and now you're saving all these resources, and then those resources will effectively in turn transition and go to PvP. They'll go towards healing, they'll go towards training, and this is where you'll actually get more sustainable PvP that will last longer. You'll be able to have more engaging fights. Why? Because more players on average will be able to participate. Anytime you're doing early fighting, and this isn't to say that all fighting earlier in the mid game is utterly pointless. I think ideally, if you're able to avoid as much fighting, and this is kind of a rock mindset as well, especially for kingdoms that understand the value and importance of KVK. The approach is that you just don't want to have civil wars. You don't want to have a lot of unnecessary or lawless fighting, because all it does is just delay and stifle your account's progression and how much it can develop to get to a more prepared point when KVK comes around. And a similar mindset can be taken in CoD, except expanding on it so it's more clear to the average player, which is when you focus 100% purely on development, you are going to progress that much faster than the person who is constantly fighting and having to spend, because there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to loot, right? Especially with the way the mechanics are, you basically would have to completely shut out and remove every single piece of land or territory from an alliance to really be able to then start effectively looting people, right? Because they have to be off territory in order for you to rally swarms. So these are just things that, with the way the game is set up, really makes you go all the way before you can start, for those that want to take advantage of looting, before you can start getting to that point. And so because of that, my mindset and my approach was always, well, and this is where I talk about having that type of evolution and having a better understanding, because having all the fighting, the Strongest Lord event, which is your MGE here in CoD, and then any other events that will factor into you doing what I consider to be just unnecessary lawless fighting, will only factor into delaying how quickly you can progress. And the approach is really, how can I eventually start enjoying CoD to its fullest extent? I will tell you, the most enjoyable part about CoD thus far is the fighting. hands down. The PvP is the most enjoyable part. But if I want to be an active contributor and valuable participant, I need to be able to set myself up for success. And if you're at like T3 or T4, or you just got to T4, maybe you've been at T3 for a while, and you're just fighting nonstop, that is going to slow down your overall progression on being able to get to a point where you can be a more impacted fighter. And so this is why the question I have, along with my mindset, is, to me it almost feels as though, why not take a more understanding and proactive approach to kingdoms, where the idea is, you know what, let's limit to not arguably eliminate unnecessary PvP, because it will benefit every single player. Think about if you had an opportunity to almost quickly, or faster than you probably ever could have, get to all your buildings at 25 and getting to max tech at the fastest rate you possibly could, right? And the ideal system for that is you basically disperse the behemoth layers between the active alliances that are there in the kingdom, along with villages as well. And you do optimum flagging so you can get good RSS income, right? You focus on getting your alliances to max tech as fast as possible. These are all things that will factor into individual players being able to progress. And, again, spenders, albeit, are somewhat of an exception, right? Because the idea behind that is, they're spending to be able to unlock and get farther ahead so they can enjoy things sooner than, the average free-to-play player. But it is a very interesting thought on when you think about how are you going to enjoy a game to the fullest, right? Like, what part of the game do you find to be the most enjoyable for you? For me, and I think for quite a few people, PvP is the most enjoyable. And I think CoD has a very unique approach to that, where we look at it and we say, wow, this is very different than what I've played before. There's clearly a lot more skill that's involved in CoD when you're comparing it against other kingdom builders. The barrier of entry is not too bad when it comes to learning and being able to familiarize yourself with what can and what cannot be done and how you can be effective in your own way. And that, to me, is incredibly enjoyable. So that is where my thought this topic came from, is when we're thinking about how we get to a point, how we get to a stage in the game that is going to be the most conducive to keeping activity as high as possible, keeping players retained, and keeping that retention rate high as possible, or as high as possible, having the lowest amount of player drop off. And so, these to me are things that I constantly think about. And, given my time so far playing CoD, I've absolutely enjoyed it. And it really interests me when, because, and just to give you an example here, when I was playing Infinity Kingdom for a little while, I often heard from players in kingdoms that would tell me, we're building our kingdom this way, in large part and or just in part because of how I built my projects and how I built my kingdoms and how we showed how effective and how efficient things can be and how well it can be when you give every single player the opportunity to progress their account at a unimpeded rate, right? Which is, 100% if you want to attach a number to it. And then from there, you focus on educating the average player and then working to assimilate them to where they will eventually start participating in PvP more often, right? But the big thing for me, I've always recognized from so many kingdoms that I've played in, along with the projects that I've ran, is that you have to give players a choice, right? Forcing people to do, and I'll probably do another video on this, but forcing people to participate in PvP where they do not have a choice in the matter is, in my strong opinion, from what I've learned, how you dissuade people to participate, how you turn them off to wanting to engage and arguably maybe even wanting to continue playing in your kingdom. And to me, that's the biggest thing, is trying to understand why you don't want to take the choice away from people, but instead you want to work on educating them, informing them, giving them good tools and resources, helping them understand. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of hand-holding in that regard. You have to go the extra mile and help people feel comfortable about participating. And a big part of that for me is kind of when you look at the min-max approach. Like, I want to be able to participate when I'm at a point where I don't feel like I'm just wasting resources and throwing things away. And that's why I say, for me personally, right, if I could, I would never want to participate in PvP until I have maxed all my buildings and I've maxed all my tech, right? And even to a lesser extent, maxed my VIP. Then at that point, but again, I don't put that into like my primary category. I think buildings and tech are the bare minimum. But once I got to that point, I mean, man, I would just feel so effortless and comfortable. And that's why I say, it's not as though you're not going to participate in PvP prior to then, but it makes you feel so much better because now you know the incoming resources that you're getting are going to less outgoing paths, if that makes sense. Okay, that is going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this TED Talk, if I want to call it that. This is a Call of Dragons TED Talk presented by your boy BN. And again, this is another type of content that I like to put out there. I think having intellectual, stimulating conversations where we do more than just talk about events in the game, or how you can hero pairings or leveling your account, or showing you fighting in PvP from other kingdoms. These are the types of things where again, I like to put these out where it's more of let's try to get a better understanding of how we're playing, where we're coming from, what are the benefits to us, how to improve the average player experience so that way you as an average player, you as a player, have a great time playing. Okay, that is it for me. I want to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts. Am I off the rocker? Are you totally on board? Do you see where I'm coming from? Do you share a different opinion? I want to hear it. So let me know down there. That's going to be it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.